Hello and welcome to the 48th episode of Jazzology presented by Savage Content. I'm your host, Willard Jenkins. We're here alternating Fridays, giving two jazz fans the opportunity to compete against each other for a chance to win $100. Each contestant will be asked a question worth 2 points. If they're unable to answer correctly, their opponent will have a chance to steal the question for 1 point. We'll ask 10 questions, and at the end of the 10 questions, the person with the lowest score will get a bonus question for the opportunity to tie the score, no matter how far they're behind. If they're successful, the game will go to sudden death. The person in the lead at the end of regulation will go first, and each contestant will take turns trying to answer the sudden death multiple choice question until we have a winner. And now let's meet this week's contestants. Our reigning Jazzology champion is Joe Petrucelli, who is the executive director of the Jazz Foundation of America, and whose responsibilities include program development, fundraising, production, and financial management. Are you ready to meet your challenger, Joe?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Well, our challenger for this 48th episode of Jazzology is Ras Burnett, who is a Brooklyn-born saxophonist, composer, educator, and musicologist. Ras comes from a family of saxophonists and has a BA in music studies and an MFA in music composition. Ras's other occupations are in music therapy, and he lectures on free jazz and social movements. And now let's get to today's Jazzology. And as our reigning champion, Joe goes first. So Joe and Ras, are you ready?
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Joe goes first. Joe, the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra was started, or shall we say began, in what year? Was it A, 1981, B, 1979, C, 1986, D, 1991, or E, 1988?
Wow, this is specific and granular.
Come on now.
It's great. It's great. I love it. I can confidently lop off A and B. So I had an inkling that it was the late 80s, and I know that in the evolution of Jazz at Lincoln Center as kind of a sub-program and then entity of its own with its own facilities, that occurred over a 20-year period. So the founding of the orchestra, I'm going to say something's telling me 1991.
That is incorrect. So Ras with an opportunity to steal the point. Ras, the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra was started in what year, or shall we say began in what year? Was it A, 1981, B, 1979, C, 1986, D, 1991 has been eliminated, or E, 1988?
I think it's E, 1988, if I'm remembering correctly. I think so.
That is correct.
Thank you.
For 1 point. So Ras has stolen the first point. The Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra indeed began in 1988. Ras, it's your turn next.
Okay.
The tune titled Ciora, which was written by the late great trumpeter Lee Morgan, first appeared on which of Lee Morgan's Blue Note albums? Would that have been A, The Rump Roller, B, The Sidewinder, C, Search for the New Land, D, The Gigolo, or E, Cornbread?
All of those records are great, I think it's E, cornbread. Jackie Queen, Billy Higgins.
That is correct. Ciora did indeed first
Hank
appear
Mobley.
on
Yeah.
Hank
Cornbread.
Mobley, yeah.
Beautiful record.
All right, indeed. So, Joe, you're up
Absolutely.
next. Time to play some catch up. Ross is up 3-0.
Okay.
Joe, who scored a hit record with their performance of the tune 4 on 6? Would that have been A, James Moody, B, Thelonious Monk, C, Stan Getz, D, Wes Montgomery, or E, Charles Mingus?
Okay. Well, this episode has been memory lane so far because I love Cornbread, and one of the first albums I got into when I started listening to jazz was Smokin' at the Half Note, and that was Wes Montgomery with the Wynton Kelly Trio. So I'm going to say D.
Wes Montgomery?
Yep.
That is correct. It was Wes Montgomery who had a hit with the tune 4 on 6. So we are at Ross 3 and Joe 2. All right, Ross, you're up next.
Okay.
The tune Theme de Yo-Yo comes from the soundtrack for the French film Las Danses à Sophie, which in English would be Sophie's Ways. Which of the following expatriates who lived for a time in France recorded that tune, Theme de Yo-Yo? Would that have been A, Sidney Bechet, B, Lucky Thompson, C, Dexter Gordon, D, the Art Ensemble of Chicago, or E, Johnny Griffin?
D, the Art Ensemble of Chicago.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, it was the Art Ensemble of Chicago that recorded Theme de Yo-Yo. Yes,
Don
indeed.
Moyes hitting it on there too.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah, we've got a playlist brewing with this line of questioning.
Oh, you do?
Yes, me and Theme to Yo-Yo. That's a banger.
All right, well, here's another one for you, Joe. You're up next. Oliver Nelson's classic Stolen Moments was recorded with personnel that included Eric Dolphy, Roy Haynes, Bill Evans, Freddie Hubbard, George Barrow, and who on bass? Would that have been A, Richard Davis, B, George Duvivier, C, Paul Chambers, D, Ron Carter, the most recorded bassist in recorded music history, or E, Charles Mingus?
Okay, so this is from the Blues and the Abstract Truth, and I can kind of picture the sleeve, and everyone would have sounded great, and there are a lot of natural fits with the personnel, and crossover with other projects. Ron with Dolphy and Paul with Bill Evans, but I do believe it's B, George Duvivier.
That is incorrect.
Okay.
Ross with another opportunity to steal the point. Ross, Oliver Nelson's classic tune, Stolen Moments, was recorded with personnel that included Eric Dolphy, Roy Haynes, Bill Evans, Freddie Hubbard, George Barrow, and who on bass? Would that have been A, Richard Davis, B, George Duvivier, C, Paul Chambers, D, Ron Carter, or E, Charles Mingus?
Yeah, that's such a great recording. I always liked Oliver Nelson's writing and
Absolutely.
and his alto playing
Yeah.
also, which probably gets
Underrated alto playing.
yeah, I
Mhm.
have to agree.
Yeah.
That probably gets a little less mention. But I believe it's C, Paul Chambers. Okay.
That is correct. It was indeed Paul Chambers.
From
Was the bass
Detroit.
player in that wonderful ensemble that made that particular recording. This week's spotlight is on Conversations with Ramsey Lewis, a curated collection of the late great Ramsey Lewis conducting interviews, recounting stories, and sharing laughs with various legends of jazz and blues, followed by music performances. Look for recent Conversations with Ramsey Lewis clips featuring Robert Cray, George Duke, Lee Ritenour, Eddie Palmieri, Joey DeFrancesco, David Sanborn, Phil Woods, Jane Monheit, John Pizzarelli, and more. Visit youtube.com at Savage Content and look for the Conversations with Ramsey Lewis playlist. And while you're there, remember to check out past episodes of Jazzology presented by Savage Content. This week's Spotlight recording is a new posthumous release from the vaults from pianist Les McCann. Les McCann, who joined the Ancestors on the 29th of December. And this was a recording that was made at that great club in Seattle and discovered by the jazz detective, Zev Feldman. And it's a 3 CD set. It's called Never a Dull Moment, and Never a Dull Moment with Les McCann, that's for sure. Ross, as a newcomer to Jazzology, we always like to ask this particular question.
Yes.
How did you fall in love with jazz?
I always liked it from childhood. I heard it a lot. My father was listening to it around the clock, and he played alto, flute, and the bass clarinet. He never recorded, but he was just known a lot in the Brooklyn area and on the Lower East Side. That wasn't super unique at the time because the music had a strong presence in the community. So a lot of Black children were around it. I think maybe some didn't stick with it as a personal aesthetic for themselves as they got older, but they know about it from having been around it. But for me, it just resonated with me as an expression. My grandfather played too, my father's father.
Oh, you're part of a lineage. All right.
Yeah, of course, that doesn't hit you until later.
Exactly. The importance of that, right?
Yeah.
So, Joe, you've answered this question before because you've been on previously, but tell us what keeps you excited about jazz.
Well, it's I would say that there are a couple of things that keep me excited about jazz, but nothing more than the opportunity to go out and hear live music, see live music, hang with musicians. I think Raz and I were chatting before the show about the current generation of musicians, and you just mentioned Les McCann. I mean, Les is someone that through the Jazz Foundation, we had an opportunity to work with in the later years of his life and correspond with. His manager told me that he referred to his transition as his graduation, and his manager noted, and I added with honors to that. So Les graduated with honors, and what keeps me passionate about jazz is you have this opportunity to interact with the living legends, or just observe and listen, really. And then on the other hand, experience the upcoming and emerging artists. And we were talking specifically about bassist Luke Stewart earlier, but that's just one of many examples. So there's so much happening with musicians later in their career.
One of the things we can all agree on is there's no shortage of musicians making music. Okay, we can talk about other ills affecting the art form, but there is no shortage of musicians.
No way.
Right. All right, Ross, you're up next. You ready?
Yes.
All right, Ross, which of the following instrumentalists was born Herbert Solomon? Would that have been A, Herb Alpert, B, Herbie Nichols, C, Herbie Mann, D, Herbie Hancock, or E, Herbie Stewart?
Yeah, I like Herbie Mann a lot. He had a visibility socially as far as being able to project what he was doing, but he always seemed to be pretty broad, And I think it's C, Herbie Mann.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We got some stiff competition for you today, Joe.
Fantastic.
You got to bring it if you're going to keep this championship going.
I love Herbie Mann too, and I maybe for one of the same reasons that Ras does, because he had Sonny Chirac in his band.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying, man.
and Roy Ayers as well.
Yeah. That's using your visibility and your platform for the ultimate good.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
Miroslav. Yeah,
Miroslav Petrucelli. Yes.
Yeah.
So he knew good musicians, that's for sure.
And stuff with Chief Bay, right, from the Village Gate.
Yes.
He was dealing with African music early on too. Yeah.
Right. So Joe, you up next. You ready?
Yes.
All right, Joe. What jazz pianist scored a hit record? We're back to the playlist aspect. What jazz pianist scored a hit record with his rendition of All the Things You Are, which of course has been played by thousands? But what jazz artist scored a hit specifically with their rendition of All the Things You Are? Would that have been A, Ahmad Jamal, B, Bill Evans, C, Count Basie, D, Vince Guaraldi, or E, Les McCann?
Okay. This is a tough one. I associate Ahmad Jamal with some other tunes, Poinciana, but and of course big hit type records pop up with Les, of course, and stuff like Compared to What, and everyone else was prominent in the recording sphere. But I'm going to say A, Ahmad Jamal.
That is incorrect, and Ross has another opportunity to steal the point. Ross, what jazz pianist scored a hit record with his rendition of All the Things You Are, the great standard? Would that have been A, Ahmad Jamal? That's been eliminated. B, Bill Evans. C, Count Basie. D, Vince Guaraldi. Or E, Les McCann?
As far as hit record, from what I'm remembering, even though it was quote unquote before my time in a way, but I do remember talk about I think it's B, Bill Evans.
That is correct. The correct answer is Bill Evans, and Ross steals another one. All right. Ross, you're up next.
Mm-hmm.
Ross, what jazz vocalist won a Grammy Award for her 2018 album release? Was that A, Dee Dee Bridgewater, B, Diane Reeves, C, Diana Krall, D, Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, or E, Renee Marie? Which of them won a Grammy for their album in 2018?
I believe it was C, Diana Krall.
That is incorrect. So an opportunity to steal the point, Joe.
Okay.
What jazz vocalist won a Grammy Award for her 2018 album release? Was it A, Dee Dee Bridgewater, B, Diane Reeves, C, Diana Krall has been eliminated, D, Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, or E, Renee Marie?
I believe this is D, Cecile McLaurin-Salvant.
That is correct. Cecile McLaurin-Salvant did indeed win the Grammy in 2018 for her album release. So, Joe, you're up next. Joe, clarinetist and saxophonist Anat Cohen has a saxophone playing brother whose name is A, Avishai Cohen, B, Oded Cohen, C, Uval Cohen, E, Ellie DeGibri, D, Ellie DeGibri, or E, none of the above?
This is tough. I know it's not Avishai, either of the Avishais. One is a trumpeter, one's a bassist. But I'm not so familiar with the others. But I'm guessing here, or just pulling on the subconscious and saying C, Yuval Cohen.
That is correct. Yuval Cohen is Anat Cohen's saxophone-playing brother. And you were right in eliminating Avishai Cohen because he is Anat Cohen's trumpet-playing brother. Quite a prolific family, I would say. Ross, let's see what you can do with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Sticking with the Cohens for a moment, pianist Emmett Cohen, no relation to Anat, has collaborated on record with several of his jazz elders. Which of the following of Emmett Cohen's jazz elders appears on Emmett Cohen's latest record release? Would that be A, Ron Carter, B, Jimmy Heath, C, Jimmy Cobb, D, Tootie Heath, or E, Houston Person?
I think it's D, Tootie Heath.
That is incorrect.
Okay.
So, Joe, a chance to steal a point. Pianist Emmett Cohen has collaborated on record with several of his jazz elders. Which of the following of his jazz elders appears on Emmett Cohen's latest record? Would it be A, Ron Carter, B, Jimmy Heath, C, Jimmy Cobb, D, Tootie Heath has been eliminated, or E, Houston Person?
Okay. Well, sadly, I'm going to eliminate B and C because I believe Emmett's been recording very recently, and we lost Jimmy both in 2020. I worked on a fantastic event a couple of years ago, our first Jazz Foundation benefit during COVID, with Emmett playing behind the great George Coleman. And I am aware that Emmett has been playing with E, Houston Person. I don't know if they've recorded, but I'll venture a guess for Houston any day, and that's my answer.
That is correct. Emmett Cohen's latest recording is in collaboration with Houston Person, the now 89-year-old tenor saxophone player. So, Joe, we are at the bonus round, and as we detailed earlier in our introduction, you have an opportunity to tie the score if you answer the bonus round question correctly. So, Joe, The prolific pianist and band leader Orrin Evans is a native of what city? Is Orrin Evans a native of New York, New York, Trenton, New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, or Philadelphia, PA?
Okay. Well, very confident that Mr. Evans is a Philadelphia resident, and I know some folks from Camden who have ended up in Philly, but I'm just gonna stick with E, Philadelphia.
That is incorrect, and we have a new champion. Ras Burnett is our new champion. The correct answer to that is that Orrin Evans is a native of Trenton.
Trenton.
What's that sign say as you're pulling up on Amtrak? Trenton makes, the world takes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Trenton made Orrin Evans, and you're right, he does indeed live in Philadelphia, but he was born in Trenton, New Jersey. So that makes Ras Burnett our new champion. Congratulations to Ras Burnett on winning our 48th episode of Jazzology. We encourage each and every one of you to try your hand and play Jazzology. And if anyone watching would like to become a contestant on Jazzology, click the link and simply fill out the form. You must be 18 years old or older, and be sure to follow us on social media at Jazzology Trivia Show to get all the latest news and updates. Thanks so much to Joe and Ross and to everyone who joined us for our 48th episode of Jazzology today.
Remember, thank you.
Remember, you can check out Jazzology every other Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you missed the show, you can find the archive on the Savage Content YouTube channel. And we will see you next time on another edition of Jazzology.